Okay, hello. Episode 14 of Two Sisters in Business.
Hi, everyone.
We are here with a special guest today, Samantha Yanks, editor-in-chief of Westport, Weston and Wilton Magazine, co-founder of the Connecticut Edit, and founder of Samantha Yanks Creative. See, I said it all. We got it all.
It's a lot.
Yeah, no, it's great.
A woman of many talents.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here today. Selfishly, to talk all things publishing industry, magazines. I go way back in the fashion industry also, and I'm just excited to hear your side of your story and your side of the industry. And Kaki obviously has experience in marketing and everything and events. So there's a lot to tie in today and to discuss. On top of all of that, we talk about entrepreneurship a lot.
Yes.
And community.
Yeah,
and
building a community and celebrating the community. And I feel like you do that a lot. So we'd love to hear more about that too.
Exactly. So welcome.
Thank you
We're very
so much.
excited
I'm
to have
excited
you.
to be here.
Yeah.
We've found the sun on a very
we
cold,
did.
I know.
soon to be another snowy day.
Yeah, I know. More snow coming in. Oh, yeah. Okay, so why don't we just dive in? I mean, when you look at your bio and your career, and for those out there not in the industry, like the thing that jumps out at me the most is Oprah Magazine and Hamptons Magazine, and where you got started. So tell us like where the beginning of your career, and then how you ended up at these wonderful publication titles. They're such headliners.
I always say I had two of the most incredible first bosses. My first boss was Anna Wintour. My second boss was Oprah Winfrey. I mean,
it's amazing.
It's
amazing,
really,
yeah.
it was both really incredible women to work for, both amazing mentors to this day. I was having lunch. I always forget it was my birthday last week, and I traditionally do, thank you, the same thing every single year. I have dinner at Polo Bar in New York, and then I have brunch at Balthazar, and Anna Wintour was sitting next to me.
Oh, my God.
And I actually said, thank you for being my mentor. Like, you were my first boss. I don't think people say that often enough, and I don't think people sometimes have the guts also to say that to her. So she kind of smiled, and it was mid-fashion week, and it was very nice.
And I feel like even though she's Anna Wintour, she must appreciate that,
Don't
right.
you
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
Everyone loves a compliment.
Nice to hear.
Yes, and especially someone like about getting started in your career, and that's like what she's all about too. She loves like kind of grooming and getting women ready to go.
100%.
To their next
She likes
thing.
good grooming, and she likes grooming. She likes grooming people. But I do think I think it's important to say. I think it's important for people to hear, and you could tell she kind of was appreciative of it. I started my career. I've worked my entire career in media. I had my first true job after interning, which was also at Condé Nast as well. But my first true job was at Vogue Magazine.
Oh, nice.
And I worked in the accessories department. I know your background is at Calvin Klein, and also very illustrious brands, and yours in marketing and incredible companies. Like, it was the pinnacle. It was really an amazing time in the industry. I really deeply thought that my path was fashion, and I spent many years working there, and I loved it. It was both the most incredible education in terms of working with people who were truly driven, passionate, knowledgeable, collaborative. Everyone wanted everyone to succeed. The product was going to be the best it could be because the team was driven to do that together.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really learned about collaboration there. And fashion, of course, was the surface of it, but the underbelly really was.
Which is like so amazing about that Condé Nast and Anna Wintour and everything, because you see Devil Wears Prada, which, it has its own story, but, you think of the fashion industry as being this like scary, whatever place, but ultimately there were so many wonderful people that really wanted everyone to succeed and like get the training in that would then carry them into their next role.
100%.
Yeah, it's so good to hear that.
I always say it was the best. It really was the best path in terms of really kind of understanding that you need to start from the beginning. You really, really need to learn everything about any industry, I think. So, I started as an assistant there, and I worked in the accessories department. So I did all of those really fun things, fashion closets, lots of Manolo Blahniks around me, all of those really wonderful things and fashion shows. And it was fantastic. And I found a niche, which I think was part of the way that my career kind of the path that it took. I found a niche. I really loved fine jewelry and watches.
Oh, nice.
And I became, which I say this not in an egotistical way, in a way that Anna really also understood that this was an area of importance, and I became American Vogue's first fine jewelry and watch editor.
Oh, wow.
And that was like this really incredible moment of her understanding that it was an area that really needed to be explored, me really having the passion to want to get the education behind it and work with all of the brands and travel. And
wait, so you must have worked with Gucci too. Did you work with Pamela too?
I did.
Yeah, she was a good friend of mine.
All of these amazing talent, and most of whom are all still around doing like really incredible things. Some still in our industry, some not. And but what I realized ultimately is high fashion, and that world was not like my story. And I think people went at that time on a very distinct path. You were kind of what was called a lifer at Vogue. You were never going to leave. You didn't want to. There was going to be a home there for you as you morphed, whether you became a stylist or an editor or a writer or a model booker. Like that was one path. And the other, which is the one I took, which was to kind of explore a bit more, stay in the media space, but look at what else was out there. And a job opened at Oprah Winfrey, and when I left, some people gasped, and other people applauded. And what I really realized was I love the media space. The media space was changing, right? This was at a point, it's always changing, but this was at a point where franchising started to happen. So Oprah was really moving from her show into print media. Deep interest in books.
Wait, had
book
the magazine
clubs.
launched yet?
The magazine had just launched at Hearst, and we were working on really nuancing and developing the O list. And so that's really what I spent my time there on. And that was wonderful. And then fast forward, after some time there, I realized that, and it brings a lot of what you do and what you do and all of us do together, is I really like the marketing piece. I really liked Oprah built this amazing community, again, before community was a buzzword, an important buzzword, but she really knew how to build a community. And then I really like the piece of how do you bring it to life. So it was great to be able to kind of dance between Hearst and the magazine space and her show and Harpo and Chicago. I began to travel more. Oh, that's awesome. And then in that, I realized, wow, I really do love Chicago. Not enough to move there, but I loved...
not the weather.
Not the weather, but I loved getting to know different communities and different store owners and how people shopped differently in Chicago than they did in New York, than they did in Boston. And I really wanted to move into regional publishing. And so that's what I did. I went to what is now called Modern Luxury. At the time, it was called Niche Media. As the company's fashion director, we had 72 magazines, and I got to travel all over the country. I was in Aspen, and I was in New York, and I was in Boston.
And were you doing events there, or was it like...
editorial
events, stories and everything.
Cover stories, fashion stories, all of that. And I loved it. I loved the company. I loved the people I worked with. I loved getting to know people across the country. And what I really loved was getting to know like the entrepreneurs and the people who made each of those communities thrive and the businesses that people were building. And I just dug kind of deeper into the company. And my home base was New York and the Hamptons. And over time, I became the editor-in-chief of those two magazines. And I was there for 13 years. It was really the bulk of my career. And fell in love with regional publishing and fell in love with how the media piece, the storytelling, the narrative of what those communities are, fused together with events. How do you then celebrate it?
Right.
How do you bring people together to let them experience brands and hear the stories and meet the people? And
so exciting.
Yeah.
And you must
amazing.
have a wealth of people that you've met in that time, just celebrities.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a few.
I can only imagine the list of people, especially out in the Hamptons and all the like fancy events and all of that. So awesome.
I love that though. I mean, I feel like when you are there in person and meeting people, it's so much more impactful and you get such a deeper engagement with a brand or whatever it is you're celebrating. But Lauren and I talk about this too, like being an entrepreneur, it's such a roller coaster, right? So like to be at these events, like when we go to conferences and to hear compliments from people, it just makes you realize how
what
special
you're
what you're
doing
doing. It's special
yes.
and it's fun and it's, I don't know, it's just fun to be a part of that community and be out there rather than, behind a computer all day.
I know. And I think during COVID, we lost that for a little bit. And like those sorts of events, it was like, oh my God, we can't get together and do all these things that are so crucial to our industry too. And what we do. No, yeah.
100%.
So
I mean, it's so important to, I think as storytellers on the media side, meeting people, because if you're not out and exploring who people are, what they're doing, what their lifestyle looks like, it just makes those stories, they're not as dynamic.
No.
And you don't really understand the whole holistic picture. Like who is the consumer? What resonates with them? What's the bestseller with the product? Why? Why are people buying differently here and there, seasonally, all of those things. And that's where I find the joy also is meeting people, telling their stories, and whether that's on the brand side or that's more of a human interest story, it's the meeting people that that I love.
That keeps you
going.
keeps you going, waking up every morning and doing the same. So tell us now how you ended up here now with, and I want to hear about it all, but like the Connecticut edit, because that feels like a true, and Samantha Yanks Creative, like your own entities, businesses, agencies, whatever you want to call it. But tell us how you ended up there and what those are doing now. It's so fun.
So when after 13 years, perfect transition at Hamptons and Gotham, I had decided, and it's taken me time to say this answer with confidence, because it's the kind of job that most people don't leave. Right. Yeah. And what I realized was I'd kind of told the stories, like to what we're saying. I had done it. Like I had put my mark on it. I had, I think, done the job that I wanted to do when I got there and that I fought to get. I really wanted that job. And it wasn't that I was ready to tap out. I just thought it was the time to kind of have another steward for the brand and someone else look at it with a fresh set of eyes and tell those stories, because I had, it's not that the stories were running out. I just think my perspective had kind of hit a wall, and I left and I took a pause, which did not last long at all.
I just heard a term called the power pause. Like it's kind of like pause and see what's next.
It did not last long, I think, because I guess like this, I wasn't done telling stories. I was just done telling those stories. And so I launched my own creative agency, and I always think of renaming it because it's not really a creative agency. I work with brands on helping them tell their stories, create their narrative. I work with a lot of brands on creating a mission statement and actually living by what that mission statement stands for and executing that. And I do believe that every person and every brand has a unique story. I think like what you two are doing is incredible, right? I mean, there's a brand and then you're marrying this storytelling piece into it. And that lets your consumer and other people who are either not yet your consumer or your consumer get to know you in a different way. And that, I think, is what it's all about. So I work with brands on that under Samantha Yanks Creative. And that's amazing. And I primarily work with small entrepreneurs who have kind of hit a wall in terms of what they can do for themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Like they have
and that
created
happens a lot,
product.
as we know, during this 10 years. There's been times where we've felt...
And they don't have an enormous budget. They can't bring on a big agency. They're trying to do their social media themselves. They're saying the word algorithm over and over. I know you're laughing because it's just true. It's like, so people kind of find... It's not a business of mine that I've ever had to, and I say this with gratitude, really push. Most people find me, it's a lot of word of mouth. They're like, can you help me?
And your network is probably so awesome,
Can you help me tell my brand narrative? It's kind of what you do. And I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. So some clients I work with, some, partners I work with long term, some are short term, and it's just an immediate, here's what the need is, or a lot of help with content strategy and execution and helping people put teams together. So there's that. And then my pride and joy, which is the Connecticut Edit, is my pride and joy for two reasons. One, my co-founder is my daughter.
Yes,
that's amazing.
So
we need to talk about
that. The two sisters are super excited here. So my co-founder is my daughter Sadie, who is going to be 18 in a few months. And we started the Connecticut Edit 5 years ago. So it's kind of a fun.
Oh my gosh!
It turns 5.
So she was 13.
It turns 5 in April when she turns 18. So it's a very meaningful year in our household right now.
I was going to say that time is so transformative. High school and all that. So to think of that like milestone of 5 years.
Yeah,
like
so
over the
I
course.
know. So we moved to Connecticut 5 years ago in April, and the media bug, or whatever it is, a bug is I think denotes something bad. I think it's a good bug.
No, you can't get rid of it.
It's a good bug. I can't get rid of whatever.
That's how I feel about
is.
the fashion industry.
Right.
I left my job, same had a pause, and then I went.
You can't shake it. It's just, it's
and then I dragged Kaki in with me.
No, I have it.
It's in my blood too, right? So we were just finding, listen, it was COVID.
Yeah.
We moved during a very transformative time for the world and for our community. And she and I were seeking information that we just weren't finding.
Right. I mean, agreed. And I've lived here a while now, Kaki too.
And it was as simple as... It was not, it's purposeful today. I think our platform is very purposeful today. It was not purposeful when we started. It was, okay, we are kind of in lockdown. Yeah. And as
no events like we're talking about, that would have been nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving to a new community.
And we were starting to discover Connecticut through our own lens. We weren't finding the information that we were seeking, which I've said, and also I think as storytellers ourselves, we saw that there was a need very quickly for the information that we were sharing, and it was twofold. It was one, there were so many transplants moving to Connecticut like ourselves who were just desperate for information
and connection too.
And connection,
because you're in this new place, you might not know many people.
Completely. And then there was also a very large, which we're very grateful for, part of our community that had lived here for a very, very long time, who were so excited to see the stories we were telling, like the places they knew, but through a new lens.
That's what I felt that way when I saw you start the Connecticut Edit, and I was started following you guys. For me, as like a fashion person that lived in New York City, and then now I had already been living out here pre-COVID, and I just thought like, oh my God, New York City's coming to Connecticut. Like we've got like a cool, like chic woman starting this like community that hadn't existed before. Awesome. And I just thought it was like the silver lining of COVID that we could have people like yourselves come out and like start this little like following and aggregate like of what's going on out here, because there are so many cool things out here, even though it is the suburbs. Like there's a lot going on, and even now post COVID, I feel like even
more.
Yeah, even more.
There's so much, and the first thing we did was just throw things up on Instagram, because what do you do? And you can, and it was incredible, and we subsequently launched our website, and that's been wonderful. But back to kind of one thing that we talked about earlier, it was really important for us, like if we were going to move forward with it and really establish it as something that we were behind, we came up with a mission statement, and we're like, what is the purpose of what we're doing? Yeah. And so our mission statement for the Connecticut Edit is to connect, captivate, and celebrate our community with social consciousness. And we really try. I love alliteration. Anyone who knows me knows I love alliteration. But we needed a lens. I think that brands need a lens, media platforms need a lens. Like everything has to go through some filter.
Yes.
Why does it belong here, right? Why are you designing this?
Why are you making that decision?
Why?
Such a good reminder. I love this topic.
What's the why behind everything we do? Why do I want to do it? Why do people need it?
Right.
Why are people going to consume it? You know, why are people going to stay in our community? And that constantly, as you know, needs to be fed.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah.
And so we had to have a lens of why does everything belong here? So we kind of divided and conquered.
I was going to ask between your daughter and yourself.
So Sadie is very much, so she wholly, I do not know how to code. I think I have a creative vision.
Sounds like Kaki and I. Kaki's the coder.
She fully built our website. She fully builds everything. Anything that we externally put out, she is wholly in charge of.
Amazing.
And also the social consciousness piece is really what she spearheads. So she spearheads all of our nonprofit and philanthropic partnerships. And we had to look at it.
18? She's 18. Or about to turn 18?
We had to look at it in a different way, right? I think where we serve a purpose with that is we like to raise awareness for underserved organizations. We are not going to be the biggest givers, right? We're not necessarily writing the biggest check. We can't be at every single event.
Yeah.
We can't possibly volunteer at every single organization that we want to. Right. But what we can do, right, and I think this is what everyone has to figure out when they have a brand is what we can do is something that nobody else can or is doing, which is we can raise awareness.
Right.
And we can bring together partnerships and we can shed a light on something that other people either aren't paying attention to or don't want to tell the story or who can't take the time to do that. And so that piece for us is crucial. And the best part about being partners with an 18-year-old is she looks at the world totally and utterly differently than me.
I can only imagine.
Right. Yeah. So, for her, it's like, okay, filling in the blanks is a really important organization. Yes. We are going on our 5th year of partnering with them. And so when I think of what a partnership looks like, it could look, like one thing. When she looks at a partnership, it looks like let's create a Japanese menu and all the proceeds go to that organization. Or I'm going to create a salad at a restaurant near us, and all the proceeds go to an organization, right?
She's creative too.
Right,
I love it.
Code's creative.
I know.
I don't come up with ideas like that.
Right.
I come up with more traditional, broad strokes, big picture ideas. And so that's like super fun.
Yeah, having the two different perspectives. Yeah.
And then
generational too. It's
it is. And then, in terms of all of the other piece, which is the storytelling and the content that we create, I think it really resonates for a lot of people that it's through the lens of a mother and a daughter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
not everything
definitely.
is.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like really not everything is.
Sometimes it could just be not even age. It's like her idea or perspective on something. And is she going to school next year? Or
she is going to college next year. That is
Exciting.
confirmed.
And
for anyone listening, she is not committed to where she is going to college.
Oh, good.
Yet.
So she's got that's great.
So
Decisions to make.
We are full of options. So
maybe you can have another edit in another state somewhere.
Yeah. Yes.
You can expand the Connecticut edit.
Yes.
Don't think the franchise is in building, girls.
Wait, I love this idea.
We are grabbing Instagram handles as the tours go on.
That's awesome.
Looking at the various cities and everything.
No, but she certainly wants to. She certainly wants to
keep
carry
going it. Yeah.
To keep growing it and keep carrying it on, and I do too. So
I love it. I love
so awesome.
Just going back to the story about how you guys wanted to start this. Like you felt there was a need for it. And so, I don't know, talking to Alicia a couple weeks ago, like she felt like there was a need for her practice, and you felt, I don't know, I just feel like that, and us too, like that's kind of how it could come overnight too.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to come tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
So many people that are wanting to look for this side hustle or their next big move, you never know what's coming.
You see a gap somewhere. Something's needed. You become obsessed with it. And
right.
Then
Right. I mean, I'm the queen of the obsessing over something. And, I do think it's like, listen, I've tried so many different things. It's, I'm grateful to be in the position that we get to showcase all the successes right now, but there were a lot of failures and a lot of mistakes and a lot of bumps. And I was talking about this with a girlfriend yesterday. I just compare it to reading books. I'm a voracious reader, but I give it 20 pages. Yeah. Actually, a girlfriend nuanced it to me.
Wow.
And she's a writer. She said, you give it 20 pages. Let's
meaning like
quantify.
You do, or people should, or you're
I give
20
it 20 pages
out. If it's
and
not
it's
good.
like, if it doesn't hit, if it's not tracking for me, it's not worth it. First of all, every book isn't for every single person.
True.
Every business isn't for every single person. Right. We all may want to create tons of bestsellers. We may all want to, create tons of brands and entities.
And make everybody happy,
and
but
make
it's not
everybody happy. But I think we all know that just is not the case. And so, yes, I think for us, the Connecticut edit filled a niche for sure. And that turns out to be one of the successes that I'm working on. But I've also, I've gone the route of, well, can I build a better mousetrap? That route for me didn't work. This is so successful over here. So when I create my version of that, this is going to be successful over it. That didn't work either.
Yes, it's so true. So, and you have to have those things.
Right. All more will be revealed is just the constant.
I love the franchise idea of the Connecticut edit though.
I know.
Something there.
I hope there's something there.
Great.
GoDaddy is getting a lot of my money buying websites.
Hold on to those URLs. Don't let them go.
I'm a real advocate for GoDaddy.
I love it. That's great. So tell us about Weston and Wilton Magazine, Westport, Weston and Wilton Magazine. We grew up in Darien, so we also were swimmers and spent a lot of time at the Wilton YMCA.
Going up there tonight too.
Kaki's going there tonight with me.
I love it. I love it.
So that area is near and dear to our hearts growing up, and to your point of the regional, publications, like, does that fill your bucket in that sense?
100%. I mean, so like going back to the media bug, clearly it's something I will never shake, or certainly have not, thus far. After many, many, many years, the former editor of Westport, Weston Wilton Magazine, it is a mouthful, but again, it's alliteration, so it was like totally meant for me.
I've got this.
Stumbled right into that one. The editor-in-chief, who had been there for many, many years and had a wonderful tenure at the company, decided to move on to her next chapter. And when I was approached about the role, I was really excited. I didn't expect to be as excited as I was, but I realized it's really like the core of my DNA, which is I love to tell my own community stories.
Right.
And I think some people love storytelling. It's in their nature, and it's just it's just kind of in my nature. And so when that position opened up, that was about a year and a half ago. I very excitedly took that. So
that's great.
So there are a few titles that I'm living out at the moment, that being one of them, and it's one that I'm really proud of. I love the team so much that I work with. We have a sister publication in in many neck of the woods. So our sister publications, we have Greenwich, we have Stamford, we have New Canaan, Darien, Rowayton, and then we have a really beautiful at-home Fairfield County magazine.
Oh, right. Yes.
So we have a really beautiful portfolio, and really represents all the towns in Fairfield County that we love so much. So that is just a joy.
Yeah.
And it is a thrill to be able to kind of be at the helm of something that I think is really well respected in our community.
It is, very much so.
So that's great. And
such a nice segue from your career experience to be able to come here and serve the community in that way and like build those brands too. So how do you, working on those magazines, how do you find like your cover stories locally, and like what do you love most about that day? I mean, I would assume it's telling people stories, and I feel like that concept just kind of translates in everything you're doing. But how do you like network in this area? Like, what's the process, I guess?
So I think, it's interesting. When I inherited the magazine, I did a really deep archival look back. And I think it's really important, especially I work with a lot of heritage brands, as you both have, right? And so I think the responsibility when you work with heritage brands is to bring some newness, some freshness, and your point of view. And so the point of view I always bring to the table is I don't know if I coined the term. I might take credit for it. If someone else has out there, please call me out on it. But I look at everything through what I call a glocal lens. So I think globally and filter it locally.
Love that.
Okay, and by the way, I'm looking straight into the camera. If someone else coined that term, please take credit for it and reach out to me. Okay, but I'm going to, if someone did, I'm going to use it for now. If I did, I'm going to take credit for it. So the point is, I try to take a global perspective on everything that I do and that we do as a magazine. And that touches any business that I'm in. Meaning, like, what is the global narrative? And because it impacts us all locally, no matter what, and we're not going to get into politics, but whether it's politics or it's socioeconomics or it's real estate.
Right.
Or
also local politics can be so different from
so different, so fascinating, so heated.
So heated.
Right.
Like it's
more
almost
heated
more
than national politics.
I know.
My
And it's so important. Yeah.
It is so important because it impacts your life,
your everyday
day
life.
to day. I cannot tell you. I'm not going to get into it.
No, we don't have to.
I'm going to spare your listeners the details. But
it's very important.
It's very, very important. And so, I try to take a global perspective in terms of what is it that like impacts us all on a day to day. Then how does it impact us locally? Yep. So the stories that I try to tell, and I think we come at it in a different way than hyper local media, which I always try to differentiate ourselves from, is I like to know who are the people who are doing things globally, and what are they bringing to our community locally? So our recent cover, we did a story with Martha Stewart. Everybody,
right.
Martha is just will forever be topical, no matter where you stand on Martha. And I'm very pro Martha.
She lived in Westport.
She started her career in Turkey Hill in Westport. Yep. So she published her 100th book, and I was without question getting her for the cover. And it took a lot of power moves and a lot of negotiation and a lot of, and to be honest, it actually didn't, because Martha Stewart, I have no idea, I absolutely adore her. I know there's, there are non-believers in the Martha Kool-Aid. I am a believer, but she actually, I had worked with her on several projects at Hamptons Magazine, and when I was working with her publicist Susan Magrino, who's also her partner in her businesses, it actually was a much more natural conversation than I anticipated it to be. And when we met, Martha said, "Oh, the last time we spoke was on my porch in East Hampton," and I was wowzer, girl. I mean, that was impressive. I mean, I don't think I'm memorable to Martha Stewart, but that was great. Yeah. So she was one. She was one of the first covers I had at Westport and Westport, Weston, and Wilton Magazine. And so that was great. And then we had Billie Jean King on the cover of the magazine, and that's a great global local story, right? Yeah. She is a global icon. She's a trailblazer. My daughter is a competitive tennis player. Tennis is a huge part of our lives. So again, there's always some personal reason. There's some personal connection. And she was coming to speak at the Westport Library. Oh, nice. And so that to me was a no-brainer. Yeah. Right. We just had Jimmy Pitaro on the cover of the magazine, who is the chairman of ESPN. And there is a lot of discussion as to what is going to happen at Disney with Bob Iger leaving.
Very hot topic.
And so that was kind of a hot topic. Our community also on a local level, as is yours, is very passionate about sports. So the fact that ESPN's home base is Connecticut, and Jimmy lives in Westport.
Nice.
So there's always kind of a global story, what's topical with a local lens.
That's awesome. And where do you see on this note of all of that, like the industry heading in general? Because that is something that I find fascinating. And over the past 10 years, how much has changed. I mean, I left my job at Calvin when I got married in 2013. Calvin Klein collection is back.
Calvin Klein is back. Calvin was at the show. What a moment with Anna. Look, our careers are colliding.
I know. Yes, they are. I looked through the whole collection. I thought it was great.
It was beautiful.
And it definitely was so fun to see that because I think it was 7 years they took off or something.
It was a hiatus.
Yeah, it was a hiatus. And to think when I left in 2013, brands didn't even have an Instagram when I left. And then all of a sudden now 10, 12 years later, look where we are. And so where do you feel like the industry is headed, and like what are the important things that we need to keep an eye out for, in terms of all these like influencers, magazine, like press in general? It's like there's so much. How do we tackle it as a brand too,
There's so much. I mean, I think just to jump off of the fact that both of us really started at heritage brands, and both of those brands are still thriving today. Now, those brands have both gone through intense incarnations, right? So the Vogue of yesteryear and the Calvin of yesteryear is not today.
No.
But it speaks a lot to survival and thriving and pivoting and understanding that the narrative is constantly changing. Yeah. It all just comes down to like, how do you capture people, right? Yeah. How do you capture people? Where do you capture them? And how, and how?
Right. Exactly. So that's it. I'm going to listen to this and write that down.
The landscape is changing, of course. When I started, social media wasn't a part of what I did. And now as an entrepreneur, I've started something that's solely digital, right? It will never, I don't believe, and I mean, I'm not a believer, never say never, but I don't see the Connecticut Edit going into the print space. I think it lives in a digital social event space. It is a true living community.
Yeah.
Right.
But on the flip side, I work for and with heritage brands where I do think social media and the digital landscape are crucial to how they carry out their message. So I see both sides of it. I think the landscape's changing in that it's unpredictable. Capturing the consumer is more and more challenging.
Yes.
Keeping them is ever more of a topic for people. And what it comes down to is, I think it's really become a buzzword. And sometimes I'm happy about buzzwords. Other times I'm not happy about buzzwords. I think it's about community. I think it's about how do you as a brand, whatever that brand is, it can be a tangible product. It could be it could be
restaurant
media,
or
it could be absolutely anything. How do you build a community that wants to be a part of it and that it's kind of a two-way street, right? They're getting something from you, whether that's product or content, or whatever, and they're giving you something.
Right. That's kind of, I feel like, why we started this podcast. Too.
Yes, I know.
Because our community is so important to us, all the ladies out there that love our product, but we always say, like, I mean, Kaki has such a marketing background, like, how do we give them more, you know? And how do we show more behind the scenes and who we are too, that we're, we're people.
Right. Yeah. Well, the great news is like you have platforms like this, and the great news is that it is showing over time that people want to be part of the conversation. Yeah. Right? They want to be part of your brand's narrative. They want to proudly wear your products, tag you, showcase you, link to you. And the great news is that in the ever-evolving landscape is that there are just more and more ways for people to do that, right? When I think back to my early days in media, it was a very traditional model, right? Yeah. You had a publicist who was pitching an editor product. Right. The editor chose if they were going to showcase it or not. Readers saw what you published. They chose to buy it or they didn't choose to buy it. There were retailers who were working with brands, and it was a very linear process. And then that reader would go in and say, look, I saw this here. I want this. And that whole model has been totally squashed.
Yes. It's
and
fascinating.
The good news is that it's opened up opportunities for the consumer and for the brand to, in ways, collaborate, for the consumer to have a voice. Sometimes I'm sure as brands, you do not want them to have that voice. Right, and they are very outspoken,
and it's a quick feedback too, a voice. Like it can be immediate since we're direct to consumer and digital. You know, you get that. It's fast,
and it's also interesting to watch brands who want to diversify. Right, like does the consumer want that?
Right.
Are they going to, because they love A, are they going to love B?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Is there an opportunity for brand expansion? And look, you look at even Instagram going through their own trial, testing that. Like, how much do people want? Like, what are people coming to Instagram for? Are they coming there for inspiration? Are they coming there to be able to use it as a tool for absolutely everything, right? Is this new platform where you're going to be able to edit? Is that essential for people? Are trials a great idea on Reels? Like, should you be testing your content with audiences that aren't the ones you've already captured?
That came up on our Instagram account, or my personal one, and it asked me if I wanted to test it. But I said no, because I don't know. Someone said this too. Like, how do you know who they're feeding it to? Because aren't the people that follow you in your community, they want to see your content, not other people, not outside of your community.
So the question is, the trial reels are going to an audience outside of your community. They're going to your non-followers.
So maybe it is good then.
It is. It depending on what I always say it's like depending on what your goal is, right?
Yes.
If your goal is to expand brand. If your goal is to expand brand audience, then yes.
Then maybe it's good.
Because it's a great way to test to see where there's content and traction and interest.
Right. That's so true. Yeah. All these questions I could go on and on about, because we talk about them every day.
Well, I know we talk about, and we always talk about too how there's so many resources for people to start their own thing now. So there's so many brands out there. There's so much media out there.
Yes.
You have to find your story, stick to it, as we've talked about, and really cut through the clutter to keep people engaged. And it's a challenge every day, right?
Yeah. And remaining true to your vision, your vision of the Connecticut
100%.
edit.
It's always like, what's the filter? What makes you unique? And to be proud of that.
Right.
And, unfortunately or not fortunately, it takes patience. For those of us who are
and learning.
We're all laughing.
I mean, here
if
you
you're
are.
just listening, we're all laughing. It takes patience. It takes consistency, while at the same time being malleable and pivoting.
With the changing landscape of everything.
With the changing landscape, right? And so the entrepreneur in most people gets tested constantly.
Yes.
Because it's more oftentimes challenging than not.
Gosh, you just summed up our whole last week. That's
right?
exactly what we feel all the time. It's more challenging most of the time.
It's more challenging most of the time.
And you have to come to peace with that. I'm still coming to peace.
I know.
Right? I mean, all three of us are smiling.
Partners
right?
too,
We
right?
put makeup on this morning.
We got up.
We pulled ourselves together. We're all in like winter whites.
Exactly. And partners, like Kaki said, like your daughter, like a sounding board.
It's so hard. You need it. You need someone to talk to.
Yes.
That's going through it.
I mean,
with
anything done in isolation is 10 times more challenging.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Introvert or extrovert, whatever it is. You need a sounding board. And that doesn't mean a traditional partner. My daughter's my partner, you two are sisters. It doesn't need, there isn't a right answer. But some sort of sounding board, I think, is crucial.
Awesome. Yeah,
because in
helpful.
isolation, we all make likely pretty poor decisions.
I agree.
I think that, just goes back to community too, right? Like you need that connection with someone, whether it's a partner,
the
you're
voice.
living life, whatever. we talk about how our customers like are going through a hard time in the hospital or something, and they see someone with a pineapple embroidery and they like immediately connect. So like providing
joy.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's just something that keeps me getting up every day, like
it's
thinking
so
about
true.
that.
I know. I love those stories so much. So how do you feel about suburb living versus New York City? Really quickly, we'll wrap up in a few questions. But do you go into the city? Like I want to go in more, but I miss it. I don't know.
I just went in 2 days in a row, which I will say is an anomaly. It's an anomaly. That is very rare.
Yeah.
So I grew up in New York City.
Okay.
And I really did not see myself moving to the suburbs.
Yeah.
I will be 100% honest about that. But on the flip side, I did not come kicking and screaming.
Right.
I moved at a time we moved at a time in our lives where we were all really excited to move for a variety of reasons. We actually were moving right before COVID. So while we moved during COVID, that was not the driver for our move.
Right.
We all really wanted to be here, and we specifically wanted to live in Westport. The first podcast I ever did was like solely talking about like why Westport.
Yeah.
And it really was not, we want to move to Connecticut. We're going to look everywhere in Fairfield County, and we really wanted to live in Westport. There are many things we really love about the community.
It's a great town. Yeah.
And do I miss the city? I do in certain ways. Like the thing I get the most excited about when I get off the train at Grand Central is to be able to walk.
Yeah. Same.
And like my app of tracking, the first thing I posted when I left the city was "Thank you for letting me walk 4 miles a day without even thinking about it."
I know you have like 15,000 steps, and you're
like all of us, I work out, I play tennis, I do all of the things, but nothing to me will ever replace walking around New York City and discovering and really there's something different every day, every walk, every moment.
It's inspiring.
It's inspiring.
In a different way.
In a completely different way.
Yep.
Now, would I ever give up my beloved car?
I know.
And
more
the
space.
and my home.
Yeah.
And I get to live by the beach and wake up in the morning and
there's those
go
things.
for a walk with my dog in a completely and utterly different way. No, and I feel really lucky that I have been able to do both.
Yep.
And now we're going to be empty nesters next year.
Wait, that was I know. So one last question on that note, because our kids are younger. How in your career, in your life, because you've had these amazing, crazy jobs too, that I'm sure required a lot of your time. Like, and we always say there's no way to balance everything, and we're constantly trying and failing. But looking back on your career and all that, and now about to become an empty nester, what were things that you did or just top of mind things that helped you along the way? And I don't know. It's crazy to be in that position too and think back on everything, I'm sure.
I surround myself with really honest people. I really do.
Love that.
I surround myself with people who tell me like it is.
Yeah.
They don't sugarcoat that, until the Connecticut edit, I would say Samantha Yanks Creative was something that really just organically happened. Mm-hmm. People were coming to me, asking me for help with their businesses. I had to actually name it because I had to name it.
Right.
But that was really, that was just something that kind of came together. The Connecticut edit was the first foray into really being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And not, working at, not being like a C-suite executive or not being at a major corporation. And that was the first time that I realized I needed a much smaller circle, a much more honest circle, and to think about, like, what are the things that make me go through the day that are a non-negotiable? Mm-hmm. Family time, working out,
coffee,
lots of coffee. I do constant Instagram series about how much I love coffee. Like I talk to the camera and I'm like, I love coffee. Yes. I drink a lot of Diet Coke. Yep. So,
Same.
Those are fine. Those are non-negotiables too. But what are kind of the North Stars?
Yeah.
And it took some time to figure out what those were.
Right.
And I will close on like a great Oprah moment that I heard recently, which is, I think I appear to most people because I've had a very forward-facing career, and it was not by choice, but it is how it landed. I appear, I think, to most people like an extrovert. I am a complete and total introvert. I'm an only child as well. My daughter's an only child. I love being alone. Yep. And Oprah said something about how she too appears as an extrovert, but she's an introvert, but she retreats to refuel so that she can be an extrovert.
Right.
I feel the same way. Like I retreat a lot. I quiet my mind, meditate. I spend a lot of time in solitude. Yeah. So that I can then be out and be really engaged and really present and have really meaningful connections. And then I go home and I'm really thoughtful about them, or I try to be, and then figure out the nuances of what happened then that other people are going to want to hear about. What are those, how do I drill that down so that people will then read that story or see that Instagram post or listen to this podcast and hopefully get something from it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's so great.
I love how you, Samantha Yanks, creatived your own life. Like you created a North Star and message about what you need in your life.
Yes.
To keep you going in your professional life.
That's very true. Just nailed it. I know.
That's a good way to think
about it.
They all
speak in sound bites.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Just marketing.
Just marketing 101 here.
I love that. That's such a good story to leave on and message. I think it's so great, and especially for us with our kids and businesses and all that, and about to enter into all those crazy years of like middle school, high school. Yeah, all that time. But it's so awesome that you joined forces with your daughter too. It's so inspiring.
Don't listen to other parents.
Yeah. Follow your own gut.
Pro tip
feedback.
Pro tip. Okay, that's such a good reminder. I need to like write that down somewhere and read it every day.
Yeah. Post it on your
Follow
refrigerator.
Our own paths. Yeah, exactly.
Because other parents commiserate with each other, right? And my mother once said to me, for every parent, it's the worst year, right?
Yeah.
It's the worst year.
Yes.
Getting your kid onto a sports team.
Yeah.
It's the worst year out there getting your kids into college. It's the worst year ever, and it's every parent's worst year because it's your year.
Yeah.
It's
and
your
there's
moment,
always a challenge
right?
at
always
every
going to
age.
be.
Yeah.
It's always going to be
So
the most challenging to you.
Yeah.
So listening to other parents.
Yeah.
I love that.
Stick with our gut feelings and what we know.
Sisters,
I love it. Yeah, we share a lot of advice, that's for sure. Okay, so to wrap things up, tell us where to find you and where everyone can follow you on Instagram and your website and everything.
So on Instagram, we are at the Connecticut Edit and at Samantha Yanks and at Westport Magazine.
Nice.
And website-wise, we are theconnecticutedit.com. And listen, I love to work with brands. And so please reach out at SamanthaYanks.com.
Love it. Amazing.
Love it.
And tell your daughter if she's looking for a job in 4 years. Stay in touch.
What about now?
I don't know. I know. We don't. Yeah.
She
or
has
now.
a job.
Literally,
She's expanding.
Yeah.
The Connecticut Edit.
If she needs another side hustle or something to help out.
For 3 years in Westport.
I just think there's nothing more valuable than that young perspective on things.
Totally,
it's like so good. Yeah. So anyway, we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Totally.
I love it. Anyway, thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Samantha.
much.
This has been so great.
Thank
I loved
you.
hearing
This has
everything.
been so much fun.
So much fun. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.